Hey, Harry. Welcome to Zero Calorie Sport. I'm with Harry back in the house. We're going to talk about...
back.
Yes, back of a bang. We're going to talk about the aftermath. We're going to try to pick up the pieces after the NBA Finals and what a finals it has been. I think I thought it was a very narrative-filled finals, unlike except for the 3-1 comeback by Cleveland Cavaliers. Besides that, I think this one has got to take the cake for being, in terms of narratives and full of stories. The intensity of this finals, I think this one definitely has to take the cake compared to the last two Warriors sweeps, or the Warrior quick keys.
Yeah, well, I would say that this takes the cake because of the news made, the injuries. The devastating injuries, I think. I understand the 3-1 comeback because that was historic for Cleveland. So, yeah, you probably set that aside. But this finals, the drama of it sort of supersedes all of it, all of the finals of recent years. Yeah. We can go back as far as, let's say since Jordan retired. I would say this is more dramatic than anything other than perhaps the 3-1 comeback or the 1-3 comeback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The news coverage of the amount of fan excitement for the Raptors winning, I think exceeds all of LeBron's rings, in my opinion, because it basically meant a whole country kind of won the ring. You know what I mean? Won the chip.
I see what you say. I don't know if it rivals either the first or the third, or his first the first in Miami, and first in his career, or his first in Cleveland.
Social media is new, but there was too many people.
What's new?
It was for the Toronto Raptors to win, and social media as well. Social media reporting these parades and stuff. So maybe I'm I don't know how many people were on the previous parades, but it was reported that there were 2 million people parading for Toronto's victory, which is equivalent to the amount of people which are protesting in Hong Kong right now as we speak.
Okay,
so
well,
I thought Toronto, very interesting.
Okay, well, Toronto is a much larger city
than
Cleveland, and I think Miami too. Miami is a glamorous city, but Miami is not a big city. So, So Toronto is the equivalent of New York City. I mean, it's not as big, but it's the biggest city in Canada, right? But I think you're right in the sense that social media has even accelerated, even as recently as 3 years ago. More and more people are taking to publicizing, putting videos and stuff on. It's just much easier than even 3 years ago. So, I wouldn't be surprised that there's been more of these sort of coverage or citizenry documenting all this. So, yeah.
I'll give you a fun fact. Toronto's population is reported in 2017 at 2.93 million. And apparently it was recorded 2 million showed up. That's a pretty good turnout rate.
Yeah, although the way they went about the population, I'm more willing to trust because it was, painstaking work by the census. Yeah. I'm not sure how they arrived at the 2 million figures. Was it 1.6 and they just ran it up to 2, or I don't know how they.
Yeah, good one, but sort of. I think that's still good to make 1.6. That's 50%. That's great.
But even then, I don't know. Did they just, how when Trump and they were figuring out what the inauguration? We don't know. We just draw a crowd, draw a random box of a crowd, and just extrapolate how many people per square inch. I don't know that, but look, I don't doubt that. So many people went out or turned out for the parade, and it was on a Monday, so it was on a work day too, although it was a lunchtime. And I don't, I don't know, but I don't doubt that many people turned out for it.
True. All right, now back to the series. How do we go about this? Do we talk about the Raptors first? I think we talk about the Raptors, definitely.
I think so. What's happening with the mic? Is something going on with the mic? With you or with me?
No, I think everything's fine. I think I hear you clearly.
Okay. I heard some static or something. Anyway, go on. Yep.
So from the Raptors side, right? Like before they even played game one, what were your thoughts on who was going to win? Like what were your predictions?
Well, obviously before the final series began, Kevin Durant was out, and we don't know when he was going to come back. And I thought he was going to come back game 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if you agree with me, maybe I think you do, that if Durant was there, they would have won pretty easily, right?
Yeah,
It might have been 4 or 5 game series, right?
Let's get that away. If Warriors were full strength, that would knock Raptors out the way easy. But
yeah, and I believe that they they certainly would have won in 5, if not 4. And I think if Durant didn't get injured, I think they would have they would have come back in all likelihood. You never know, but in all likelihood they would come back from 3-1 down as well. But even with him, the specter of him coming back, I didn't trust the report so much as I had a feeling they were going to come back. He was going to come back, make a comeback in 4 or 5. Maybe he would come back even a bit earlier if they were 2-0 down or 3-0 down. But so if he wasn't going to come back
to this any deeper, we'll be talking about the Warriors. And
okay, fine. So if he didn't come back, I still think it would have been an even series, which I think it turned out it was an even series without Kevin Durant.
Yes. It was tight. Every game was really tight, except game 1. But I thought game 2 was tight. But I thought, for me, I mean, maybe it's biased, but I thought Raptors should have taken it. But then they lost it at the end.
They had a historic run. You're talking about game 2, right? Yeah. Warriors had a 18-0 run and a 24-1 run.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, Toronto seemingly outplayed the Warriors, but it's not. You hear things about how they outplayed in so many quarters, but it's not really how the game works. It's about playing. If you have a big enough run in a quarter, that can overcome the 3 quarters that you lost in the game.
Yeah, especially the Warriors. The Warriors, how they play, right? They just need to, just sink 3 threes in a row, and they're on fire, and then they'll come back, and that's how usually they overwhelm you, or they overwhelm you by taking a early lead to kill off your type of momentum, or that's when they come back and also take away from your kind of momentum of the game. So even without
Kevin Durant, I thought with Klay Thompson healthy, I think they would have won Game 6, because when he went out, they were up by 5 and he was on fire. So they go to a Game 7. Now without him, it's highly unlikely, but even with him, I think they had a very good chance, a 50-50, if not a 60-40 chance. They've been there, done that. Toronto, only Green and Kawhi has played in a Game 7, and at home they will be under pressure. They let the Warriors come back from a 3-1 deficit. So it would have been very interesting if Klay, certainly, I think they would have been favourites if Klay had played in the Game 7. Even if not, it's no guarantee that Toronto would have won as well. So, they were fortunate in a sense to have escaped with a Game 6 victory. As it turned out, it was only a 1-point game, really.
You can say that for Game 5 as well. Game 5 was tight.
You're right. Definitely.
Let's say this. I think to make it simple, it's without Kevin Durant, it would have been quite an even series. And if by watching from game 1 to Klay injured himself in Game 3, so he didn't turn up in Game 4. So
he injured in Game 2 and he didn't turn up in 3.
Sorry, yes, my mistake. Yeah. So from Game 1, Game 2 was obviously Klay's injury forced him off, and that was you can call it a write-off by the Warriors, right? Because it's just essentially Steph. I mean, I don't call it a write-off, to be honest. They still have Boogie, and they still have Draymond, right?
I wouldn't put Boogie in there. He turned up in a couple of crucial moments, big wins actually, when he played well. But he's working back from still an Achilles as well as a quad injury, so he's not quite there every game. But Draymond was still there. Iguodala is still there. The Warriors are a formidable outfit, even without Kevin Durant or without Klay, really. But obviously Toronto was just better if you lose two of your three best players, if the opponent loses two of your three, and especially your best player, right? So, yeah.
I mean, then again, it's like still a real even series. I thought it was a real entertaining series. You know,
Yeah.
Every game was close. Like, you know, like some team will come back from behind and it will come down to, like, you know, to the fourth quarter. Except the first game. Game 2 onwards, Game 3 onwards, every game was tight from in the fourth quarter onwards, and it was just real. It just filled with excitement. I thought, and
especially the last 2 games, it was really a 1-point game. You know, it was, I know the last game 6 they fouled with a second left, and Kawhi had 3 free throws. But it was a 1-point game, and you know, both games, a championship was on the line, right? Yeah. You know, you make the shot or you miss the shot, and it could have gone it could have been clinched. And obviously, with the injuries, not just like, you know, a knee, ankle sprain or something. This is devastating injuries to both. And obviously, whether the specter of Durant coming back or not, it had everything. So the finals was memorable. Not in always the best way, but it was just memorable. It was just dramatic. I felt.
Yeah, it was actually I think that's the word for it. It was dramatic. It was filled with narratives, and that's what people like, right? Like the game intensifies, or the meaning of the game intensifies when there's like a good narrative to it and great drama to it. You know?
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good series. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it ever since I started getting invested into Toronto.
When was that? Was it this start of this season? When, like I wonder when did you start investing?
No, remember
yourself?
you were telling me about that Kawhi is going to be the guy this year because he was your MVP pick at the start. Remember?
I think so. Well, I cheated in the sense that he was balling the first 5 or 6 games, and
but
I sort of took cue from that.
But then again, because back before that, the narrative casted onto Kawhi was not really the best. It was not really a positive one, right? They were saying that, you know, it was casted like, you know, he just wanted to quit. He wanted to be a superstar elsewhere. The fallout with the Spurs basically didn't leave him with a good good rep. But,
and look what's turned. Maybe we need to go back, because I think I was on board the Kawhi, like in terms of Kawhi and the Spurs. Yeah. Like if you're San Antonio, how do you feel now? And look, they're never going to get rid of Popovich, but if they had a trade, if they had a choice into keeping Kawhi or keeping Popovich, or you know, dumping one on the other, which is not it's not realistic back then. But if you give them the choice, they would take Kawhi, right?
Yeah, but I think
they'll say.
But the narrative was more of like the organization, not really about Pop. Pop was just like in between.
I think it had a lot to do with him. It was the medical staff too, but I think Pop was the one who did not believe Kawhi. And I think it's more about the way he went about it, the way he handled it, you know, so that rubbed Kawhi the wrong way, the way I see it. And I actually think he exacerbated the situation, and he made a bad move, which is going to cost him dearly, because right now they're in perennial mediocre mode. They're going to be the 7th, 8th seed all the time. Part of it is attributable to his very good coaching.
NBA purgatory.
But they're in purgatory, and it's even worse now. The way I was just thinking this the other day, a player like DeMar DeRozan, or just a mediocre player, or mediocre in terms of a star, they are less valuable now because of the draft. You know how they changed we talked about they changed the draft. The lottery draft odds, right, for the teams.
Yes.
Correct?
So there's no point,
So previously, the chances of you getting a higher pick if you're sort of just missing the playoffs is much smaller than it is now. Because you see how the Lakers moved up, you see how the Knicks jumped up. A lot of teams jumped up into the top 4, and New Orleans jumped up to the top 1 because the odds are higher, right, because they don't want to have tanking. So previously, if you just missed the playoffs, you weren't likely you weren't likely to get a top pick or one of the top 3 picks anyway. If you just miss the playoffs. Now, if you just miss the playoffs, there's a much greater chance for you of jumping up, maybe not the first pick, but certainly the second or third pick, which is more valuable. So it's I would say that because they've changed the odds, they've reformed the lottery. Those players who's on the margin, who takes you on the cusp of, or takes you into the playoffs, they're less valuable now because you're much better off just missing it and being 10th or 11th,
9th or 10th,
than being in 7th or 8th. Yeah. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? So, I'll take Popovich.
I think you're right. Let's just quickly go through this. But I think for the Pop bit, I think he wasn't strong in that situation from the fans' point of view, in terms of not from the fans, from people on the outside of the organization looking at the press conferences, he never really made a strong position or claim, which could be like positive or detrimental depending on the situation. But for me, whenever he would talk to the press about Kawhi, he always wore like a pair of gloves, safety gloves. So
what do you mean, metaphorically speaking? What do you mean?
Yeah, metaphorically speaking, because I remember when they were always asking about Kawhi, he's saying, yeah, well, I spoke to Kawhi, he's not ready. So from what I gathered from there was that he was not picking sides, which I don't know, like maybe that's the reason. Yeah, you could say.
I took it differently. I thought he was taking sides in the sense that he didn't trust Kawhi because he wanted a second opinion, and he felt that.
What would have stopped? What would have stopped Pop from coming out to say that he's ready, but he doesn't want to play?
Well, I think he's kind of said that. I think he was a bit frustrated as well, and that's why he sent Tony Parker to say what he said. He was questioning, and Kawhi's a different guy, and you need to know that. You need to, you can have your way, but the star or the player, the asset is the more important. Sorry, the star player is the more important asset to a basketball organization than even the coach, and you need to know that. You drove him away. You got a bad deal for it. You can actually make a case that you've devalued the asset by making Kawhi a situation even worse, right? Yeah. Like, in other words, other teams knows that Kawhi wants out, so they'll give you even less because that you have to trade him away. So, I mean, the players he got, DeRozan and Porter. I mean, maybe you could have gotten Siakam even if they did the trade, again. I don't know, but the players he got back.
Let's put this on hold. Let's not delve too much into it.
All right. So
this topic also applies to the AD trade slightly, right? Because AD wanted out of the Pelicans, but
it's different. It's different.
Yeah, I know it's a bit different, but but the deal in terms of what the Pelicans got was, we can discuss this later, but
let's just finish the final thread.
Elements in both trades, but anyways, before we close out this finals, I want to ask you, because a lot of fans, actually, I don't need to ask you. I just want to make my point across that.
Make your point.
To all the people who think Steph Curry shouldn't have taken that 3-point shot for the Warriors, and they thought it was a poor shot, and then now questioning his pedigree as a top tier NBA player, I think they're crazy. I think Steph has showed enough metal, and his resume speaks for itself. I think he took the right shot, but he just didn't. It just didn't go in on that night. You know what I mean? It's a shot that Steph Curry usually sinks. I know people always bring it up that, he's taken a lot of these game-winning shots. I think out of the 9 of them, he sunk 0 of these 1-point games or 2-point games. That type of 3, just like the final. So there were a lot of people were questioning Steph Curry's pedigree, and whether he's a world-class player, and I think he is. And if you have anything to say to that, if not, let's just move on.
Well, I just to add on to what you're saying, I agree with you for the most part. First of all, I'm not sure why are people complaining about the last shot. I mean, there's no one else you would rather have the ball with, especially with Thompson and Durant out, and they did run a play where he got a pretty good look, not a great look, but he had considering the circumstances, it was as good as of a look as you're going to get.
I think it's
and
a good
just missed.
Curry look, right?
Huh?
For Steph Curry, that's a good look.
That's a pretty good look, yeah, and he just missed. Now, it's not a guarantee. Even if it's an open three, you don't can them at 100% clip. It's maybe 60, 70%. And in this case, it wasn't really open. It was open enough for him to get a good shot of, but he just missed. And I heard that stat, like 0 for 8, but that's a very arbitrary sort of cutoff, with a 1 point. I mean, you look at other people, I don't think they do just necessarily that great either. And so many times he makes a three that, against Houston, for example, not the 33-point second half, but even game one, I believe he makes a 1 point or game into a 4-point game. That's pretty valuable. That means that you've won the game, you've clinched the game. And in game 5, he made a three to tie the game with about 2 or 3 minutes to go. That's a pretty big shot, but they don't count in that stat that they've arbitrarily sort of chosen. So I don't necessarily buy into that too. And people will sort of hang on the fact that he hasn't won the finals MVP when you've won 3 championships and you've won 2 regular season MVPs. And I actually think the 2015 finals, he was the best of Warriors player. If you want to give LeBron the MVP, that's fine on the losing side. I have no problem with it because he was clearly the best player. But if you're going to ask who was better or who was the most valuable Warrior, it was clearly Steph Curry. They gave it to Iguodala because he changed the series, but he was the X factor. He wasn't necessarily the most valuable player. It's almost like, I'm not saying Iguodala is like a fly, but an X factor could just as be like a fly landing on an even balanced scale, and he just tips it to one side, and people view that as the X factor. And Iguodala is obviously more than a fly in that series, but he was the X factor, and people attributed him as the most valuable player, and which is false. So you win one, and you're never going to like Kevin Durant is the best right now, is the best player, but back then he was certainly the best Warriors player, and being sort of second most valuable after Kevin Durant is no shame. It's just that you didn't get the award, and he had a very good series last 2, and he had a pretty good series. He averaged 30. It didn't have great shooting numbers. It was sort of average or below average, but it wasn't terrible. It was just slightly below average. That was all.
But talking about this series, before he got injured, he was definitely the best player in the playoffs. You're
talking about Kevin Durant?
Yeah, Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I would say that he was the best player, just full stop. And I know, I don't know what you think, because do you?
Yeah. No, hands down. That's why I said he was like the best.
Because I know you love your Kawhi, and I love him too.
No. I mean, I'm talking about, I like Kawhi as a character, but I can see through the differences. Obviously, no, Kevin Durant shooting numbers, I can't remember. I think he was shooting, I don't want to give the wrong percentage, but he was shooting record numbers for himself in the playoffs. And so I thought he was about to steamroll the Raptors, and then that injury happened. And after watching game 1, I was that's when I changed. After game 1, I was like, Raps in 6. But before that, I was like, without Durant, I still think they're gonna outgun the Raptors, right? They still have Klay, they still have the Splash Brothers essentially, and they have I thought Boogie would be that tipping scale, that tipping factor.
He was good enough for 2 games, but he's a defensive liability. If you don't give him, if he can't give you 15 and 10, you can't play him. You know? So the 2 games they won, he played good, but the 3 or the 4, was it 3 or 4? Did he play game 1? I forget. He when he was just like 10 and 7, they lost. So. And
the first game, Klay was good, but he wasn't spectacular till about that game 6, where he was going to give you that traditional one game in the series where when their backs against the wall, Klay would just shoot out of his mind. He got super hot. He was good. No, he was hot, but he was super hot for game 6.
I got to say, if the Warriors had won, I think he probably was the front runner for the MVP. He was great in game 5. Remember, they were down 6.
Game 5, he was really good. But game 6, he started off super hot. If you take away the injury and you cut the game there, you'd have been like, wow, Klay was super hot.
And he missed game 3. Game 2 he was good. He missed a quarter of a game. Game 4 I don't remember. Did he have an okay game, I guess? But game 5 he hit the go ahead 3-pointer and he hit the 3 to cut it from 6 to 3. And game 6, as you mentioned, 30 points in however many minutes, 20 something minutes on 12 shots. And he was on his way to a 40, 45 point evening. And I'm pretty certain that if he didn't get injured, they would have won. The Warriors would have won. So, and again, I think, and I like Steph too. I think he's clearly the 4th best player, and he's not in the category of there's a big 3 going on, and he's not in the big 3. He's almost like Andy Murray like that, but he's still great. And I think there was a good chance that if the Warriors had won, they would have given it to Klay because have you seen his shooting numbers? Steph was down, and partially because of the defense Toronto sort of deployed against him, but Klay's shooting numbers was unbelievable, like 57% from 3 or something like that.
Oh, that's crazy. I remember they were thinking about shooting over 50%, 57%. That's out of his mind.
Well, something like that. That's I don't know if it's. I think the last time I checked,
it was close to 50%, guaranteed. And then
it's definitely over 50. I don't know where he actually ended up. But so he was shooting.
We know roughly it was in the realm of like absolute like craziness, right? So now let's bring it to talk about the Toronto players. I know everyone's always going to talk about Kawhi, but like I want to give it up to Kyle Lowry, who I've been like very down on, especially because of his playoff records in the past.
Yeah, me too. I was with you. Yeah. And
I like Fred VanVleet. I don't think anyone thought much about him until this playoffs, and then even halfway.
Sorry, just want to add, even halfway through, because he was shooting terribly, and then all of a sudden, his son was born, and I can understand that. Like you find peace and tranquility. This bundle of joy all of a sudden sort of appeared, and all of a sudden he can't miss. Like ever since it was midway through the Milwaukee series, he's been unbelievable. Like people will forget that because Kawhi won the MVP in the 4th quarter. Steph didn't play of Game 6. Steph didn't play really well. He went 1 for 6.
And that's because of Fred.
Sorry,
Fred. It's
because of VanVleet. Yeah, if you look at Kawhi, he went 0 for 3. He went 0 for. And he only scored the last 3, which was meaningless free throws. Yeah. So if he had lost, Kawhi would have been under some sort of criticism the way that Steph Curry is now. But it was VanVleet and it was Ibaka. And Siakam had a good go-ahead basket, but VanVleet was unbelievable in that game, especially the 4th quarter. He was the driver of really Toronto winning Game 6.
Yeah, I think Draymond Green was one. I mean, I'm not trying to slag on him. He did well in every component except scoring.
Look, I would say that he played. Just average. Sorry?
They needed a few more points of him, but when it comes to rebounds and assists, I have no question. And a lot of turnovers. I think a lot of people didn't notice, but Draymond Green gave a lot of turnovers, especially in the last game.
Yeah, he had 8 turnovers. 2 of it was really bad in transition. Yeah. And the last one was defense. He gambled on Siakam's go-ahead basket because he's a great defender. I think he's in that conversation of the best defender in the NBA. So he can play solid defense, just go straight up, and he would have had a good shot of stopping that scoring chance by Siakam. But because he went for a gamble, Siakam was good enough for him to get around it. So that was a big sort of. It didn't show up in the stat sheet. That lost a game essentially. I mean, I'm not saying that play lost a game, but that you forfeited the lead. They were 1 point ahead, and Siakam has scored that because Green went for the steal, and that's a big no-no. It's one of those stats that doesn't show up. And he wants the glory because he wants the steal, but that you don't play that. So that was a huge sort of mistake in my mind for Draymond. But you're right that he was really good in terms of rebounding and assisting. Yeah. But points.
Game 5 as well. Game 5, he stopped that final 3 from being shot.
Great. He was great. He played off. Like he had to guard two guys because Iguodala went to double.
His spatial positioning was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that's enough.
So great.
Series, right? I think let's let's dig into the injuries. First, KD went down. And let's just say if it was just KD that went down, and let's just say Raptors still win or whatever, Warriors would still quite, would you still think be favorites to make the finals?
You're talking about next year.
Next year, but next year.
So with Klay, without KD, right?
Yeah, I think they'll still make the Western Conference Finals at least.
Yeah, look, I guess I'm a booster of the Warriors. I think that they're a great team.
Yeah.
I still don't, like, even with Klay down and KD down, I still think they have a shot. I don't think they have a great shot, but they have a shot because as long as Steph is there, obviously if Steph injures himself, okay, it's over. But if they're treading water, if they get like the 6th seed, Klay comes back because the ACL is not as catastrophic of an injury as Achilles. He can come back pretty much in full health in about 8 to 10 months. So he comes back, let's say March, April, he works his way back. Yeah, they could contend. And who knows, maybe Durant, I don't think he'll risk it, but suppose he comes back in May, let's say, and he just gives them something, anything. Like, you see what he did in Game 5? Without his contributions, they don't win.
Limited off the ball Kevin Durant. You he's just a shooter, right? You just pass it to him. You just shoot over whatever defender you put in front of him, and it'll go in. He had 3 straight threes in the first quarter before
when he tried to drive, that's when he blew out.
Yeah, when he tried to drive, he ripped.
But you're a basketball player. It's instinctive. So suppose he's just out there as a decoy, just as a spot-up shooter. You don't think that helps the Warriors? I think that would have helped. That certainly helped in Game 5.
Yeah, so, but I'm not as high. But I'm not as high on the Warriors doing anything next season personally, unless their GM pulls off another crazy, surprising offseason. But
they can't. I mean, they're out of. I mean, if KD comes back because they're over the salary cap, so they can only have what's called the mid-level, and maybe they can apply for some sort of injury exemption that gives them a bit more of a leeway. But look, I don't think they would be certainly favorites, but I would actually. I don't know if you're a betting person. Their odds, whatever they are, I might want to lay some odds on them. I think people think, okay, their season's gone, and I'm not so sure. I wouldn't put them as a top 3 favorite, but there's
still a chance. You basically say there's still a realistic chance for them to make the finals. It's within the realm. I don't know.
It's within the realm. I don't know if it's realistic. It's within the realm. And I will say this, maybe I'm still more of an optimist. I remember how their most sort of traumatic loss was Game 7 of the Cavaliers at home.
Yeah.
That actually turned out to be better for them in the long run. And I think, and maybe this is a bit harder to sort of justify, but maybe it'll all come good because it may entice Durant to stay with the Warriors. I
agree.
Whereas in actual fact,
that's what we're going to get to. So
so we're going to get to that. Okay, sorry. Go on.
All right. Now let's move on to the point that now the NBA landscape definitely changed. It definitely changed a lot after KD ruptured his Achilles. And not only that, then something that threw another spanner in the works was when KD ripped his twisted his ACL or ruptured his ACL.
Klay. You mean Klay?
Yeah, Klay ruptured his ACL.
He torn his ACL. Yeah.
Torn his ACL. So these two things changed a lot. It impacted the landscape, and I think it effectively changed the whole landscape of the NBA next season.
Yeah, and it happened in a space of back-to-back games, right? In a space of 3 days or 4 days, right? To the same team in the same series. That's what's so devastating.
Yes. Yeah. And then right after that, like a week later, AD got signed up by the Lakers.
Yep.
So I want to ask you, how does that impact the landscape? Who are the favorites next year, in your opinion? Who's your favorite?
Well, I think if you ask
I know
me,
there's still a lot of moving parts. But
that's
based on when the 20th of June, the NBA draft has not happened, and a lot of reported trades have not gone through yet.
Yes, so I would say it's almost. Well, we can wait. I mean, we can wait a month, just a month. It doesn't even have to begin in the offseason because.
No, look, but does this trade currently make the Lakers number one favorites in the West, in your opinion?
I'm going to say no for now. It depends on who they sign.
Yeah,
and also, that's it's highly critical. And there's all these machinations behind. I don't know if you follow about salary cap machinations. When does the trade get consummated on this? So that's a bit over my pay grade for now. But I will say this: I think they certainly are a favorite. I don't know if they are the favorite. I would tend to say no if you're asking me for an answer, like a yes or no answer. I think team like Mike Conley got traded to Utah, Houston, Clippers. If they get Kawhi, I would almost say this: whichever team that Kawhi goes to, and it's probably going to be either Toronto or Clippers. Yes. I would say would be the favorite for me. But a lot of things, could change. I'm on the
exact same boat as you.
Oh, you are too, yeah.
Right now,
both of these teams are ready made, whereas the Lakers have no pieces. They've got three two stars and one perhaps budding star.
Yeah.
And you have no one else, and it takes a while to know their tendencies, especially how they do in the playoffs. And you don't get to do that until you actually are in the playoffs, and by that time, it's usually too late. So when you start a team from scratch, it's hard for them to win that season, that first season. Yeah. Look at what happened in Miami. They didn't win in the first season. Maybe LeBron sort of just choked, but they don't know each other's intricate tendencies and so forth. And you need that really to
experience and grit. Yeah, look at the Raptors, prime example, right? None of them won or made it maybe that deep, but a lot of them have a lot of experience, right? Like, look, everyone on that 7-man rotation, except maybe Norman Powell, was crucial was crucial for the whole team. I'm not saying Norman Powell didn't, but I thought he was the least important player.
Yeah, it was really a 7-man rotation, right? Really.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Lakers. Essentially, you're trying to bank on right now. You're trying to bank on Davis and LeBron. I wouldn't even put Kuzma in the conversation because he's never made it to the playoffs. So you're banking on 2 and 3, fillers, and then maybe an okay player in Kuzma, right? And he's never made it to the playoffs. And when you brought up that, if Kawhi moves to the Clippers, it's kind of a similar situation with him in the Raptors, in the sense where they have a lot of experienced NBA players some of them been to the playoffs, but just not made it to the very end, to the finish line. And they have Beverly, they have Lou Williams, these type of players who have quality, they're just not top tier, and maybe they just need someone like Kawhi to bring them over to the finish line, just like Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, and so on.
Yeah, and so what I would add is, just to add further to your point, is the point I was trying to make before was, I would say, I don't know whatever the number is, but you need, the bulk of the team has to have played with one another to have gone through it. Like even Toronto, I know they had new pieces, obviously with Kawhi and with Gasol and Danny Green, but the bulk, maybe certainly 3 or 4, 50% of the team were there. The guts of it was there. With the Warriors, obviously there was 2. They just added Kevin Durant. Look at Miami when they had the 3 guys like Dwayne Wade and Bosh and LeBron. Only Wade and Haslam was left over. It was they had to start it from scratch, and you don't know how players are going to react. Even if you have the regular season to work through, you don't know how they're going to react under pressure in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And I think if Kawhi goes to the Clippers, most of the team, obviously they have to sort of acclimatize themselves to the newest piece, but that's much easier to do with just 1 or 2 pieces than it is to just assemble a team on the fly, which the Lakers will do, which is why I don't think. But now, having said that, they have 2 of the 6 or 7 best players at the very least, and Kyle Kuzma is a pretty good player. He's not as good as Chris Bosh, obviously, but I was surprised that they kept him. He's not a bad sort of player. So you certainly have the talent. Yeah.
Yeah. Since you brought it up, let's get to the trade then. Let's get into who won the trade.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to finish up? We finish with Durant or the Warriors, the finals, everything, or do you want to?
I think that will be an overarching subject throughout anyway. So.
Okay.
The finals is done.
Yeah.
Durant's injured for next season. We'll explore. We'll explore that right after this. Let's just talk about.
Because I want to ask you. Yeah, we'll ask you. I want to ask you where you think Durant and Kawhi and so forth. Let's go to the Lakers. Let's do that. Yeah.
Because this is the thing that has happened, right? This is the thing that's been confirmed. So, Kawhi.
It's confirmed, but it's subject to.
Confirmation on July 6th.
On when which is, I mean, look, we know AD is going to go there. That's the most important thing, but we don't know if there's going to be a max space open or close to max space or not, right? That's also quite important as well. So AD's been traded to the Lakers. Yep. And what went the other way was essentially Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball. Yep. The Lakers' fourth pick this season, and then there were conflicting reports on the 2021 the first round trade pick, and the 2024 pick. Yeah, look, you're right. It's not clear to me, but there's 3 draft picks as well as a lot of pick swaps, which is valuable. Obviously, New Orleans has the right to swap if the Lakers have the higher pick. And there's 1 or 2 deferments too. So if they don't like that year's pick that the Lakers have, they can defer to the next year. These are all, pretty sort of valuable assets or options essentially, right? Yeah. But so the Lakers have sort of mortgaged the future for now, which I think is the right thing to do. Yeah. I mean, you have LeBron James. Everything works around him and his sort of timeline. So I'll give the correct pick. Sorry. So the pick in 2021, maybe 2022, the unprotected swap in 23, the unprotected first swap in 24, and the like you said, when I use the word swap, that means they could trade the first with the swap if they don't like the pick, and the unprotected swap in 25. So a key point is that LeBron's deal is projected to it's supposed to expire in 2024. So that's an important marker for the trade we're going to talk about. So continue. What LeBron's deal?
LeBron's contract is going to expire in 2020. His last season is basically before the 2024 season.
No. So he signed a 4-year contract with an opt-out after the 3rd year. No, so 19, 20, 21. He can opt out in 21, and his last year is 22, really. But regardless, it's essentially it's not that dissimilar to in terms of the pick sent. Remember the Nets and the Celtics? Remember that?
Yep.
That sort of the worst trade. This is not the worst trade because they didn't get a Pierce and a Garnett. An over the hill Pierce and Garnett. You're getting
a combined age of like 70.
Yeah. And you're going to get Anthony Davis, and if he stays healthy, those picks won't be that high, right? Because the reason why it turned out to be so bad for the Nets was they couldn't play anymore, and the Nets was terrible. And the first pick, they were in the lottery, and they got like with the first 1 or 2, 2 or 3, the top 2 or 3 pick, and that went all the way. That went to the Celtics. Here, you'll think that if obviously Davis is going to stay, and if he plays, even if LeBron starts to age, you'll think that the Lakers will still contend because Anthony Davis is a franchise player, in the prime of his window right now. I think both teams won because they're looking at different time horizons. Okay, right? Like, don't you think that?
I think this is one of those rare deals where both teams kind of won, right? Because the Pelicans had a situation where their best player, where they had almost a once in a generation type of player who does not want to play for them, and the Lakers really want them, and they were willing to trade them what a lot of people think are, real valuable young talent. I don't doubt that they are young talent, but I don't know. They're unknowns, right? They're relatively unknowns. You don't know what they'll become. Whereas Davis, you know what he is. I think after seeing him over the last 3 seasons, maybe not last season because they didn't play him as much, but the 2 seasons before. So I think it was kind of a deal where you could say both teams didn't come out looking badly. And
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So I think Dave Griffin did pretty well. He got basically the whole Lakers core except for Kuzma and LeBron, right?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I mean, I suppose that if he really, I mean, I don't know obviously how everything went, but maybe, they needed Kuzma and he got in exchange, he maybe got a pick or two, an extra pick or two. So, he did the best that he could, and the Lakers got it their man. You can sort of mortgage or forfeit or exchange pretty much everyone off the roster. As I think I might have mentioned that last time.
You say you give anyone except LeBron, and then just give me 8.
Anyone ever, and you start from there because these players don't grow on trees. And another thing is he wants to be there. Yes. And I will say this: most people say he's a top 5 player or transcendent player. I'm not so sure. I think he's a great player, I will say this: with LeBron, he is almost like the best second banana.
He's Robin, the best Robin he can get.
The best, I would say that, because he doesn't have. I don't see him taking the last shot, or certainly has the mettle to be there to have the ball in his hands. But he doesn't need to be when LeBron's on your team.
He doesn't have. I need to be the boss ego. He doesn't have that Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving type of ego. Where I need to be the number one guy. This is my team. He doesn't have that. And I wouldn't even so call. I mean, you're right in saying it's ego, but that's almost a negative. He doesn't have that sort of characteristic to take on, to be the alpha guy in the team. The way I don't see it. So that's why he hasn't been very successful in leading his team on a deep playoff run. Whereas, to me, Giannis, as flawed as he may be, he seems to have it. So, Kyrie is a great player, but he doesn't seem to have it. And, that's why Kyrie and LeBron, to me, worked well. And Kyrie is perhaps even a slightly better player as a number 2 to AD, compared to AD, because he can make, crunch time shots the way that AD, I don't think he can. But maybe they're too good that they don't let it get down to the last second, because AD is that good. He's great defensively, and he can pick and pop. Like the pick and roll for LeBron and AD is going to be unbelievable. How do you guard against that? To defend. Yeah, how do you defend against that? How do you stop that?
Yeah.
I think if Durant leaves, right? If Durant forms that duo with him and Kyrie, and imagine it's just them two, right? They don't get a third man, and they face AD and LeBron. Who would you take?
Obviously, we're talking about if Durant wasn't injured. I'll take Durant and Kyrie.
Really? Over AD and LeBron?
Yeah. Durant and Kyrie are much better. Like, I think Durant's already better than LeBron right now, but maybe we'll see what happens. I'm talking about pre-injury. I don't know if Kyrie's better than AD, but I suppose he is, because I'm taking into account the last 4 minutes of a playoff game, which we've seen is what counts.
Basically, he's won a chip, and Davis haven't even made it that far.
Well, there's a reason why he won the chip, is because, I mean, he's not the only reason, but he made that shot, and he contributed heavily. He had a 41-point game in Game 5. He went really, and even the series that he lost, he took over. He had another 40-point game. He just, being the second banana, like being number one, being the top dog, it failed spectacularly in Boston, right? So if Durant was there, I think that pairing, given sort of average the rest of the supporting cast, just say a typical supporting cast, I think these two players are better duo than LeBron and AD, purely because in the last 4 minutes, both of these two are better than either of LeBron or AD. Sure, that's not everything, but that's a big deal to me.
Yeah, okay, could be. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll really get to see that matchup, and that brings us to the next point.
Well, sadly, we won't in this. Well, even if you want to say they're both on the same team, but KD, it's very unlikely. I hope it's not.
Yes. Yeah, maybe
he'll
we'll see
ever be the same. He'll ever be the same because it's an Achilles. It's the the worst injury you can have in basketball. So,
yeah, very good point. So now let's talk about Durant. What do you think? What do you think is his next move? Let's go. What do you think his next move is, and what do you? No, let's just go. What do you think his next move is?
Yeah, I thought about it. I think he could still leave, but I think the chances of him staying increases. If you want to move to a different team, you can't play for a year. You're going to be sort of parked on the bench, and you're going to be almost like a ghost.
Yes.
And you're meeting all these.
He's going to opt in, take the money and rehab there, just like what Kawhi did the year before, and then he's going to leave after. That's what I think is going to happen. I might be wrong.
Okay.
But I think right now that's my. Obviously, there's two ways that I think realistically, there are two things that are going to happen that could happen. So it's the option that I just put out that he's just going to opt in with the Warriors and then leave because he wants to have his own team, or two, he could opt in and then sign a new contract after because like he could use this season, this championship as evidence that the team needs him. And so the whole narrative shifts that the Warriors actually is Durant's team, or not even Durant's team, but they actually need him to win a chip in the current NBA environment.
Well, yeah, those people who said that they don't need him are stupid. They don't watching the game. Maybe they would have won anyway, but certainly Durant puts them really over the top in such a way. I think there was a stat. I think I wrote that down somewhere. They're 9-1 in the finals. Golden State is with Durant, and I think they're 8-9 without him, or something to that like that. So. 1-2 in the NBA finals without Durant. That too. But if you're going to make it, that's you're talking about finals. Yeah, we're talking and 2-0 with him. That's true. Yeah. But I think it's even more of a stark contrast with the games, right? I think they're 9-1 with him and 8-9 without him. I think.
8-9.
So clearly. Durant's proven, even prior to this year, he's probably overtaken LeBron as the best player, and certainly proven this playoffs. And so you're saying that so let me just pin you down. Are you saying that you don't see him opting out and signing with another team, right? Because you're saying he either opts in.
I think it's. Like you explained perfectly. Why would he go to another organization where he's not going to play? He doesn't know the staff. He doesn't know the medical staff. Unless the only reason I see him doing that is if what the reports and what all the narratives are being put out by all these different people. The only one which I think it's almost credible or a little bit credible is Jay Williams. You know Jay Williams?
I know. What is he saying? So what did he say?
He went on ESPN and basically went in on the Golden State Warriors medical staff, saying that Kevin probably they're probably putting pressure on him to play and stuff, coming from that player protection type of view against the corporation who wants to milk out as much as they can the assets. So that they were saying that that. He was basically saying, Kevin Durant put all his trust in the Warriors medical staff, and they basically abused his trust. That's what they were saying. So basically, they sent him out when they knew he was not fit enough. But me and Justin talked about this last episode, saying that we both were in agreement that they always try to do this, put a spin on this. I don't think there's enough information out to know whether who's at fault at this. Maybe there was no one's fault. There's a very good possibility that the doctors actually thought he was fit enough to play and they got it wrong, right? Rather than
from what I understand, and from the doctor, there are certain doctors, there are enough doctors who I've heard or who I've read who said that the calf has nothing to do, like a torn or a strained calf has nothing to do with an Achilles rupture. These are doctors who are saying that, independent doctors. So it doesn't make intuitive sense to say, hey, listen, they're similar around the same area. If you put weight in on, or if you are favoring one part of the muscle or not, maybe it has an effect. It seems to me it does, but you talk to a doctor, and that's what the Golden State doctors have said, that, the worst thing that can happen isn't an Achilles. Achilles is not part of it. The worst thing that can happen is you tear a calf, which is something that you can recover. It's a risk that you're willing to take because it's the finals, right? So that's what doctors have said. So I'm maybe, and you're right. I agree with both of you guys. I don't think there is enough information released.
To point the finger, right?
To point the finger. I'm not going to do that because there are independent doctors who have said that one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other, even though it's counterintuitive. And two, unless you're telling me they misdiagnosed it in the sense that maybe there's a bit of a micro tear in Achilles and they missed, which I find it hard to believe either. Yes. And also, from what I understand, Kevin had a second opinion with his own doctor, and they sort of cleared him to play as well. So, it could be an unfortunate accident. It could be a misdiagnosis. I don't know. Yeah. And I can't fault necessarily, unless you're telling me that they misdiagnosed, I can't really fault the Warriors doctors or the coaches or anyone. Like people who, they just want to scapegoats, right? Because obviously, look, I'm a big Kevin Durant fan. I just like, he's an interesting person. I know he's not for everyone. He's an interesting enough person. He might be the most interesting person in the NBA to me.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. And I will say this. He took a risk in the sense that it's a risk worth taking because it's the finals, correct? You don't obviously come back for the regular season game, but that's what happens. And as much as I feel for him, I do. He's like, people use, I don't mean use, but what I mean by that, you can say the Warriors sort of pressured him. I don't know if they did or not, but even if they did a little bit, it's the finals for one. And you are getting paid $30 million or however many $1 million to play basketball, right? Yeah. So if you can somehow play, just give an 80% effort, even as long as you're not at risk, which we're going by that assumption, I don't think there's anything wrong with them, if you want to call it pushing Durant. I'm not even saying pushing, but if you're encouraging him to play, their interest is to win the championship. There's nothing wrong with that, and you know what? Durant also is looking out for himself. That's why he that's why he signed a 1+1. He's using, I don't want to say use, but he's utilizing the Warriors to help him get to it, win championships. And he's fulfilled that. I'm sure he's given his all. And he might, when he was looking to seek greener pastures, at the end of this season when if he were to have won a third, right? He might have done it even without getting injured. So he's doing what's best for him without trying to harm the Warriors, right? He's fulfilling his end. And the Warriors are doing what's best for him too. It can be mutual. It's not necessarily we're being selfish by trying to not think of you at all and just only thinking of ourselves. Both parties are sort of self-interested parties. Durant obviously wants to come back for the team, but he wants to play for himself. He wants to play on the final stage. There's nothing wrong with that. And if he had won, he would have taken his talents to elsewhere to seek higher ambitions, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I just don't think that there should be any blame as long as we're sure that the doctors did not misdiagnose.
Motivations.
Yeah, it's fair play on both sides.
You've encapsulated that point perfectly, and I don't think it need no more words. It need no more words. So I think, that bit's done. I think we're done with the Durant bit. We're done with the AD. Oh, actually, okay, we're kind of done with the AD bit, right? But now we can still dig into the Lakers, right? So now there's a little bit of, this is where there are a lot of moving parts. So people are wondering whether, who's going to be the third guy that's going to fill up the rest of the Lakers cap space. I mean, obviously we don't really know. There are only reports we can work off. But let's just go with what do you think they should do with the 23, with the 23, subject to if it could be 27, subject to if Davis take his trade bonus, which is $4 million. I don't know. I have a feeling he might not, because I recently found out that he's been casted in Space Jam 2. So he might maybe a way for him to make off that money, and they have more money to spend on a better third star that's out there, right? But anyways, like instead of trying to speculate who's going to be there, what do you think they should do? Should they sign multiple players, or you think they should try to sign another star?
Yeah, I think that's the question, right? Like whether they want to split up that whatever's remaining of the salary cap on the one big fish or relative big fish. It'll be third on the pecking order, obviously, or spread it across a couple of guys. I really don't know. Depends on who's available, obviously. I think if you get the sense that Kemba is available, I think you might go for him. Like
there's rumors
I know
that
wants
to play with Anthony Davis. What do you think of that? Kyrie still wants to play Anthony Davis. Would you get him, or do you think he'll be detrimental to the locker room? Or maybe he's changed his mind. Maybe he's like, you know what? I'm just going to be the Robin, or maybe even the third guy. I'll be Alfred, the butler.
Of course, you get Kyrie because LeBron and Kyrie has seemed to have worked, but I highly doubt that Kyrie would want to now. Like if he goes there, he's now third on the picking order, right?
Exactly.
Like, so why would he do that? He was second and he didn't like that. Now maybe they've patched things up, but now he's not going to be third. He wants to be one. Now I'm not saying it's wise for the team, for any team to have him as number one, but he wants to be number one, and there are enough teams who want him to be number one. So of course he's not going to go. Like I just don't see it. I'll be shocked if he went as the third guy. But of course, if you're Lakers, you call. You never know what's going to happen. You call and see what happens. Because he'll be obviously the ideal. It goes without saying. But I would put him off the table. I just don't think it's realistic. Someone like Kemba, who else would Jimmy Butler? I don't know. I think he's getting a max.
Let me give you I've done a bit of research actually on who possibly could.
Yeah. Well, so give us.
They drew up a list. I think it was one of the ESPN sports talk shows. So they brought up these players. They were saying they probably can't get Kyrie. They can't get Kawhi. They can't get
no Kemba, to Kawhi. Of course. You don't think they can get Kemba?
Unless you think Kemba is willing to take a pay cut, because 27
if he wants to win.
Yeah, if he wants to win, yeah. So.
And I don't think he'll get the super. He's already hinted that he's willing to not get the Supermax. He was willing to take a discount. Yeah. Now, if Charlotte and Michael Jordan's a pretty stingy guy, from what I hear, not just with contracts but with his pockets too, from what I hear. So if he lowballs him, or even if Kemba gets approached by LeBron or AD, who say, "Hey, listen, you can be the third guy. You can, you see what happened with Chris Bosh. His career is complete. Everyone respects him, even Kevin Love, so if you be the third guy, or they won't say that, but if you come and join us, we've got something cooking, and we need you because the skills are complementary, right? Like they complement one another because he's a pretty good shooter from the outside. So yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just drawing up the list. So okay. Going through, they can't sign these players. So the more realistic players, they were saying okay, if you can't, Kemba is within the realm of possibility, right? It just
I think so.
It depends whether he's okay, I don't mind being that guy. I want to win. I want to play in LA, that kind of thing.
He does have to take a discount, I think, but it depends on how much. It depends if the Pelicans are willing to cooperate with them delaying the sort of official trade as well, which I don't think, if you're the Pelicans, why would you do that, right? So maybe the Lakers will have to offer something more, to cajole them into doing that, which I think it's part of business. You can always, there's always a price that you can pay to make things done, to get things done, right? So
I think LeBron should have casted Kemba in Space Jam 2. That would have helped. You could have paid him through that, that kind of
But you think that's going to add to the movie? I don't know.
I don't know. Who cares?
I'm not sure.
Who cares? Right now,
the studio who's paying LeBron and everyone else would care. I mean, we don't want nothing. No offense to Kemba, but Kemba's not a household, not a basketball. He's not a household name, right?
Yeah, true.
He's not a household name. He didn't even make the playoffs this year. No one knows who he is. You think the mother and just the typical father would know who he is? No.
No, but to be fair, who they casted for Space Jam 2? They casted Anthony Davis.
I've read a couple of names. Oh, okay, Anthony Davis is a Like, he stands out. He's lean guy, but obviously he's a teammate.
Yeah,
so
I'm not.
That makes
okay,
sense.
just let
Yep.
me solve them. That's Dame Lillard.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I read the list. Yeah, Dame Lillard, yes. And by the way, these are the players who said yes, because I'm sure there are many. Like, obviously, Giannis said no, and a couple others. I guess maybe KD probably said no. Maybe he didn't want KD to outshine him, or Kawhi. I don't know, but yeah.
Just let me finish. Now this one's going to shock you, right? So they got two other.
I've read the list. Nothing's going to shock me. Klay Thompson, right? Is that the one you think?
Yeah, Klay Thompson.
Yeah. That doesn't shock me. I think Klay Thompson's a very approachable guy. He's well respected. He's well liked. So LeBron obviously said, "Hey, I don't know about Draymond, because LeBron and Draymond have a business deal. They're in business partnership. So Draymond would have been good, but Klay would have been just as good as well. So it doesn't surprise me." And the last one, I think, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I think I read was CP3, right?
No. It's just that them three and two WNBA players.
Oh yeah, that. But I read CP3 as well.
No, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember his name on the list.
I thought I read it. Okay.
Yeah. So okay, since you brought CP3 up, before we get there, we're going to talk about him next. So
yeah.
Okay. So like if they don't get Kemba, the players that are available, right now, based on right now, like more of the fringe players, more of like roster fillers, not roster fillers, but maybe like they're still starters. Maybe should they try to get JJ Redick, Danny Green,
definitely,
Jeremy Lamb?
Okay. I mean, certainly Green. The first two names you said, you have to ask. You have to try. Yeah, because these are shooters, great shooters.
Yeah, shooters.
And with Danny Green, he's a great defender too.
So, should they be trying to get players like that, or?
Well, I mean, you can try. You can try both. I mean, obviously, you try Kemba first, because if you get Kemba, then others are no good. But you put in a good word. You try to get a feeler out to see if Green or Redick is willing. I'm not sure they're willing, because why would? I mean, JJ Redick is comfortable in Philadelphia in the sense that he's played there, and Philadelphia is a contending team. They're just as good of a contender, I think, next year as the Lakers. And Green, now I don't know if Toronto wants him back, because he didn't shoot very well, but he still played really good D, and he's a good locker room guy. Certainly, by keeping him around, you increase the chance of Kawhi staying. So I don't know why Toronto wouldn't want to have him back either. So, and if you're Danny Green, why would you want to go off the defending champion? So, maybe the Lakers may blow him out of the water.
In the mix, right? Like there's I've been read reports that maybe Mirotic.
I think you trying to knock, you trying to sort of kick the tires on him too, because I think Mirotic is a good shooter. Yeah, I would say Brook Lopez. Don't know if they can afford him. Certainly you can.
Apparently, these people have done the math. Like these are the players, available within the realm of possibility.
But it depends on because they can only offer so much, and if Lopez could get more, I don't know, maybe not, but yeah.
I mean, I think to cut things short, I think we both agree. I think I'm in a. Actually, for me, I don't think it matters, but I think. If they get Kemba, it's good, but I wouldn't get any of. I think if Kemba would be good, but if you fill up the roster, that would also be good, because you want. Then you can get, if you can try to get almost a 7-man rotation of decent stars, and you have two superstars in LeBron, in the form of LeBron and Davis, you got a good chance. You got a very high chance of winning the chip, right? Absolutely agree.
So, you have a good chance. Yeah, you have a great chance with those two starting blocks, and then you go from there. And anything else, if Kemba doesn't say yes, then you might try anyway. You might start filling up the pieces, just to divvy up the salary cap on a number of players, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's interesting. And now, I think Kyrie is reportedly excommunicado with the Celtics, so it seems like he's very much leaving. And I think he's going to move to the Nets, because he recently signed a deal with Rock Nation Sports. He's left his agent, and this is I don't know if this is big news to anyone, but the person in charge of Rock Nation Sports division, he is related to the GM of the Nets.
Ah, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah,
okay.
so I think, but then there's some new reports today that the Nets might not act on Kyrie, which I think is ludicrous, because
we have to filter reports, like if there are any credible.
Because KD might not come this year, so they won't get Kyrie. But I think it's pretty much certain that there's going to be a mass exodus at the in the Celtics. There's going to be a mass exodus from Boston.
Well, I mean, Kyrie, and I think Horford also wanted, which is strange to me, because I don't know. I don't know what Horford wants. Does he?
I can give you a reason. I can give you a reason that I've heard.
What do you think? What do you think? What have you heard?
He's had really good season, and he's of a certain age. He's been coming off like 2-3 awesome seasons with the Celtics, and he's probably going to test the market rather than banking on him having another amazing season. Before he gets offered a contract next year. Maybe he's coming off a very good season, because if you think about it, not a lot of players stood out for the Celtics this season, and Al Horford was probably up there in terms of who were the better players. And I think he's probably took into account, I'm going to be another year older. Maybe I can't produce the same numbers as before, so I might as well try to get a bigger contract. I don't see myself in a very good situation in the Celtics. Maybe, that could shed a lot of light on the current situation and climate of the locker room in the Celtics. And I think if Kyrie leaves, and I don't think the Celtics are in a very good position to do anything if you think about it, right? Because I think they try to maneuver themselves to try to sign AD with the report that came out, and they failed. And, and it's because I think this play, I know that I'm digressing a little bit. I just want to bring this up. Danny Ainge, whenever he makes, apparently I've been doing a lot of research, he's been doing, apparently if you look at his track record, whenever they almost don't get a guy, they always he always postures himself to the media that, oh yeah, we were so close. But if you look at it, he's tried ever since 2014. Apparently he tried for Kevin Love in 2014, Boogie in 2015, 2016, PG in 2017, Butler in 2016, and he always came short. But if you relook at the deals, it's because the Celtics never really, they try to posture themselves into a deal where they definitely win, which is like, no, you try to get deals where it's close to a win-win situation. But basically what I'm trying to say, Danny Ainge is like equivalent to the Daniel Levy in football, in terms of he's like a hard deal maker, which is why they sometimes struggle getting the deals that they want, I think, in my opinion.
Okay, but not at least, but Danny Ainge is known to be the best sort of deal maker. I think you're right. You made a good point.
No, you're right. He's the best deal maker, but then you also have to take into account that sometimes.
But he gets the deal done. Daniel Levy, and I don't want to get to football, but Daniel Levy doesn't get much deals done. He just doesn't lose on deals, but he also doesn't get deals done, right? Now, you are right in the sense that not many free agents go there, although didn't. Well, actually, I disagree. Maybe not sort of at that high level, because they did get Gordon Hayward, and I think they got Al Horford too. I don't know if Danny Ainge was. Yeah, he was there. So maybe they're not sort of A stars, but they didn't get like a Paul George or Kawhi or whoever else. He swung the deal for Kyrie Irving, which everyone said yes. It didn't turn out well, I suppose. So yeah, I don't know. The Al Horford one's interesting. What's puzzling to me, it seems like not only did he opt out, it seems like he didn't want to return to Boston, and that's a bit puzzling. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that he didn't like Brad Stevens or Kyrie? But Kyrie's not going to be there, so I'm not sure why he's because obviously Boston's willing to offer him a larger contract, right?
But Boston can have a real toxic locker room. You think about it. You hear Terry Rozier always saying that, I'm so talented, I should be playing more.
Yeah, I suppose.
Jaylen Brown refusing to play his role, thinking he's like LeBron. All these players with big egos feeling themselves, which is weird, right? Because they all came together that year when Kyrie was injured and put up a fight against the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. For me, and this puzzles me Like
it does. It puzzles me too. Now, maybe we always thought that it was Kyrie. If Kyrie's gone, everyone or everything may go back to what it was last year, right? With Tatum and manning the wheel and so forth, and they're going to take off. But if this is what we're led to believe, or what he's hinting at, maybe it's more than Kyrie. Maybe you're right, like as you said, Rozier or Brown, or maybe the coach is losing. He's losing faith in the coach in not getting a handle on things. I don't know, because that is the most interesting thing of the last week to me. Because everyone knows Anthony Davis was going to go to the Lakers. This really was interesting. And now I don't know, and I also don't know what his motivation is. Does he want a larger contract, or does he want to win and sacrifice? Like not necessarily wanting to get paid, because he hasn't won a ring, right? So it's interesting where he goes. So he could, that will tell me if he joins the Lakers or any team and takes a pay cut. That will tell me that, hey, maybe it's not the Celtics. He just wants to win, and he doesn't feel like the Celtics are close, right?
Yeah, but, the Celtics were apparently the only two players in the race for AD. Obviously the Pelicans will try to offload him this year, right? If not, they'll get nothing for him the year after. So there were apparently the only two suitors, and it was the Celtics and the Lakers. So apparently the Celtics were unwilling to budge on Jason Tatum for Anthony Davis.
I would say there were conflicting reports. I don't know. I mean, obviously
Celtics, they kind of have a war chest of picks. They still have a war chest of picks. Yeah. They still have loads of assets. So can't you say that, wouldn't that be like a blemish on Danny Ainge's record? I think that could be. Because look at the situation. No. If Al Horford leaves and Kyrie leaves, where does that leave the Boston? Where does that leave the Celtics in the terms of the in terms of the NBA?
Okay, but I would say that I would say let's keep them separate, because Anthony Davis didn't want to commit. The reason why the Lakers made the trade was because obviously Davis made some sort of verbal commitment, because I don't think you can do that. You can't sign him to an extension right now. But he obviously made some sort of verbal commitment via his agency, via Rich Paul, and obviously he's close with LeBron, to say, hey, listen, I'm gonna sign an extension with the Lakers. He did not, his father and he did not want to do that with Boston. So obviously, if you're Danny Ainge, you can't. I mean, you can give up something, but you're not going to give up what the Lakers gave up for Davis. So I can't fault Danny Ainge. In fact, if you gave up Jason Tatum knowing that he's only going to be there for 1 year, that could be a bad job, especially if you give up the draft picks too, because I don't think Anthony Davis is as good as Kawhi Leonard. Toronto, and also Toronto only gave up DeMar DeRozan and, was it Pirtle, right?
Yeah,
that's hardly anything. Yeah. I know I sound harsh, but you're not going to win. DeMar DeRozan is a dead-end player. You're not going to win with him if he's one or two. You get rid of him. If you get rid of him anyway, if you get Kawhi Leonard back, oh my gosh, you've hit the lottery, which obviously they did. So you could get, I wouldn't want him. He's a good player. I wouldn't want him because he doesn't take you to the promised land, and he takes you away from the draft. So Jason Tatum, I know he had an off year, but he has far more promise than DeRozan. And Anthony Davis, I don't think is as good as Kawhi, and maybe he might turn into a better player. So I just I think that Danny Ainge was wise to not offer Tatum if that was the case.
Yeah, so. Good point. I think that's the Celtics done. They're actually, for the news about the CP3, there's been news that there's unrest in Houston, Houston for the Rockets. Apparently, CP3 and James Harden relationship is unsalvageable. I quote.
I think I read that, but nothing's unsalvageable. I mean, you give it time.
Okay, I mean, that being said, I can give you some evidence that was pointed out by a few people, especially, and this was pointed out from Game 6 when in the Game 6 in the second round of the playoffs, where the Houston Rockets played against the Warriors. They got knocked out.
Without KD.
Usually CP3 and James Harden would come out to post-match conference together. But in this case, after the match, CP3 apparently broke NBA protocols and did his press conference, post-match conference before the coaches and everyone else. Did it really quickly and left. And then the coaches went. Then James Harden did it by himself. And James Harden gave a real cryptic message when one reporter asked him, "So what you're going to do next year to try and like basically," I'm paraphrasing here, how do you guys are going to improve and try like, you know, what you're going to try to do basically to try beat the Warriors next year? He says, "Oh yeah, I know what we're going to." They asked him, "Do you know what you have to do to beat the Warriors?" Then he said, "Yeah, I know what I have to do, and we'll do it this offseason." You know, like. So it was quite cryptic, and I think it sounds like right now, if you put the pieces together based on the current environment, all the news that's coming out today, it sounds like, you know, James Harden's like, trade me or trade CP3 away, you know? And I think that would be a tough thing to do, right? Because CP3 has like one of the worst contracts in the NBA right now. They're paying him, I don't know what the number is. I don't know the exact number, but you're basically trading a broken player who's over the hill, and Phil.
I would say, I think he is, but I think he's still pretty. Like he played a pretty good game 6. Now he didn't play a great series, but I think he's still a pretty good player. He's a better player than everyone is saying now. Like everyone's sort of, you know, it's open season on CP3. I think he's a pretty good player. I think that like before I go, I want to hear what you think of this. Like, what do you think, and what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I mean, Daryl Morey came out and said that he's not going to trade CP3. CP3 has not said that. CP3 has come up through social media, through commenting, saying that's like, oh, that's news to me. And you know, there's a lot of like, you know, conflicting.
That's what they would say, right?
So Nick, like if you listen to Nick Wright on First Things First, he apparently talked to both the reporter that broke the news. I can't remember the reporter that broke the news. I don't know his name. Yeah. And he talked to Daryl Morey, and what Nick Wright thinks is, which is the same what I think, is that.
Did he convince you? Did you arrive at the conclusion independently, or did he convince you?
I arrived at the conclusion that I don't think that is the case. I think maybe there is unrest. There is some tension between those two, but I don't think to the extent where like CP3 wants out, you know? I think it's just like a fight, but then the news are just, you know, finding an angle to make a story that he's going to get traded. And even though if he wants to get traded, I think it will be near impossible to trade him because they're paying him he's got a $160 million contract, which breaks down into like $40 million a year. And I don't think any team would want that, right? He's like 34 years old. You know, where else is he going to fit in, right? Who else is going to like, you know, make room to fit him in, you know?
Well, I think he'll fit in fine on the Lakers, but the Lakers can't take him on. They don't have the salary cap space, right? Look, I think I'm with you and Nick, or is it Nick and you?
Dude, Nick Wright is like, he's like you. He's basically like you. Like I think you guys are very good in like. I really like both of the way you guys think. It's really good. It's like, oh, you're like Nick Wright. You remind me of Nick Wright. It sounds like
okay, I'll take that as a compliment. Okay. All right. So I think you're right that it happened. Yeah. And a lot of it is frustration. A lot of it is actually because what he's saying, what I think the report said was Harden wants the ball in his hands. He wants to isolate. He wants to do things on the fly. Chris Paul wants set pieces. And in Game 6, he did really well in those set pieces because obviously he's not as talented as Harden. He can't go isolate. So he needs players to, you know, set a pick for him, and he needs to run these set plays, right?
Yeah.
And both of them are sort of they are right in their own right, but you've got to share. Like you've got to, like Harden can't do it by himself, and obviously Chris Paul can't do it by himself. And a lot of it is just the frustrations of a entire season where they don't necessarily see eye to eye on things. Yeah. But what is also true is what you brought up. No one's going to, even if, like, I believe that Daryl Morey has sort of shopped around or quietly shopped around Chris Paul.
Yeah, surely, yeah.
But
obviously,
no one's buying.
Right?
No one's buying. So or he's not going to say, you know what, I've been shopping around, but no one's come to the shop. No one's interested. He's not going to say that. And I will say that. And I don't know if you've seen, there are business partners in the sense that, Chris Paul has these, was it James Harden? I don't know who's the main guy. These State Farm commercials that they do? Yeah, it's very funny. And they do many. Yeah, they do many of it. And obviously Harden's the better player. So I think originally from Chris Paul. But in any case.
Oh, yeah, it could be. It could be. Because like some of them you have Chris Paul just by himself. Some of them you have James Harden by himself. And some of them you have both.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them, these commercials are really good, I have to say, especially with those two. And I just think they're sort of, they get on their nerves. I'm sure you've had co-workers.
Yeah, CP3 has that abrasive attitude. He's a real abrasive attitude. He's well known. Look at the Clippers. When he left the Clippers, he had that fallout with Austin Rivers. Calling like calling out Austin Rivers, being there only because of his dad, getting minutes only because of his dad, and apparently there were reports they could hear on the ground. No, there were reports that CP3 would always tell James Harden what to do, but James Harden would tell him, "You can't even be your own man. Don't tell me what to do." That kind of thing. And there was a well-known rumor apparently in the NBA world where the first season when they signed Chris Paul, right? Chris Paul to the Rockets. James Harden was already there, and they were in the Drew League playing. And so James Harden beat his man and was on the way for his bucket. Instead of doing a simple layup, he decided to shoot it instead. And then apparently this is the Drew League, so this is like training camp essentially.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then CP3 basically went up to him and said, "Yo, shoot, go lay out next time," right? Telling him what to do, like these kind of things. And I think these kind of things could rub, players the wrong way. Look at Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has that similar abrasive, kind of behavior. If you're not doing well in training, he'll tell you how it is, right? He'll tell it, and it's okay to tell it how it is, but sometimes you tell it in a way that rubs people the wrong way, You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think Butler seems to have, you don't want to temper all of it, but he's tempered some of it, right? And I think, Harden and Chris Paul, they are who they are. It's not surprising to me. Harden and Dwight Howard used to be great friends when they joined. That's what always happens, because you always see imagine you start a friendship or start a relationship. You see the best in each other, and then all of a sudden, after seeing each other every day, you can't stand each other. And Harden seems to be that guy. He's not the most friendliest guy. He's not the most likable guy. And Chris Paul, even though I'm starting to not like him because he gets annoying. He's always barking at the referee. He exaggerates. He celebrates when he got a call. I don't know if you saw, certainly in the Warriors series, when a call finally for his way, he starts celebrating. He's showing up the referees, and he gets annoying.
Yes. No. I think he has a very bad attitude. He's a real annoying attitude. Yeah.
There are admirable qualities to him that I like. His doggedness and his pretty good. He doesn't suffer fools gladly, which I kind of like. But hey, listen, I'm watching the games and I'm distanced. I'm really removed. I'm only watching the playoffs, and I get annoyed at him. So what of someone who has to spend every single day with him? He's constantly barking in your face. He may be right in a lot of what he says, but it's just too constant. So I can understand why Austin Rivers or whoever else could get sick of him. And what Rondo said at the start of the year, I think there's a lot of truth in what he said. Now, Rondo's not the most likable guy either, but I think there's a lot of truth in what he said. How Paul, he's...
Sometimes I think certain teams need a player like that, but they need to be managed well. And I think LeBron manages players like these well. They tend to, because these type players, they need...
I'm not so sure about that. He drove Kyrie, but he's too good. He's good enough where you put up with it, right? That's the difference between Harden, Paul, and LeBron. LeBron can have these faults, but it's worth it.
Right, with these type of attitude, and they're not the best. You need a player. You need a player that are way better than them. That puts them right. I don't see Kyrie directly telling LeBron, I don't need to listen to you. I'm better than you. You can't say that because LeBron is better than you. You can't.
But
so LeBron there keep that attitude in check, and I think obviously he could exert that type of attitude towards the younger players, but it will probably be managed. It will be managed in a better way. He can't just lash at the player and not get checked by a player like LeBron. So you know what I mean?
So who are you talking about? You talking about Kyrie or who are you talking about?
Talking about like these type of players, whether it be Kyrie, whether it be Jimmy Butler, or and so on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and maybe LeBron doesn't have as bad of a sort of social personality as Harden or Paul, even though his passive aggressiveness isn't necessarily great. But I think Kyrie puts up with it, one, because they were winning, and I don't know what happened, and two, hello?
Yep.
Yeah. What's going on here? Is it the end of the recording or what? I hear all these beeps. Okay, and two, because like he's worth it. He was the best player for like 10, 15 years, and he's just worth putting up with. But obviously Kyrie couldn't handle, or he maybe justifiably he said he wanted out, and that's what happened. Now he got the championship, so he could afford to go, or else he would have been labeled as like a quitter, or certainly by Cleveland. So yeah, it all comes down to a sort of what do you offer versus what do we put up with, right? In professional sports. And, if Harden and Chris Paul were winning, obviously they probably wouldn't be fighting, but maybe Chris Paul might have said, hey, listen, I won't go because I can't handle it, even though if we were winning. But obviously now they haven't won, it makes it worse. Yeah. So, but you're right, like to answer the question, Chris Paul's contract is unmovable. So they're sort of stuck with, and it's good because I'm not the biggest Houston fan, so I kind of like to see this train wreck, and I'm not the biggest Daryl Morey fan either. He says a lot of things that it's almost like Nick Wright. He'll pick and choose whatever statistic that supports his argument, and he'll stick with that, and it's just stupid. And also, it's turned out to be wrong because a lot of numbers, they're very numbers driven, and it's too numbers driven because what he doesn't understand is, in the playoffs, 3-pointers aren't as it's too varied. So you can't necessarily rely on nearly as much as a 2-pointer, for example. So maybe the expected sort of shot of a 3-pointer is much higher, but sometimes if you go cold in 4 games, you're out. So who cares? Maybe in a long enough sample size, you can return to average, return to the mean, but it's not the case. So so I know everyone likes him because he's a sort of analytical guy and he's in a thing. I'm not. I think he's he's done some very good things, but he's not as high as on my list as a lot of people think. Yeah. A lot of sort of nerds or quantitative nerds think so.
So let's move. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces in the Rockets actually still. Besides that, D'Antoni, they're still negotiating his contract. Who knows? Maybe that might not go through and things might change. But let's move on to the last bit. I think the last bit, I just want to talk about Jimmy Butler. Do you think he's going to stay at the Sixers? Do you think that's the best situation for him? Or do you think he's willing to take a pay cut and join the Lakers?
No, I don't think so. I think the Philly fans sort of really embrace him. They really like him. He was probably, I know Embiid's the best player. I think Butler has shown himself to be sort of like the second most important player. So I think Philly definitely will want to bring him back on a max. I'm not sure they'll do that to Tobias Harris, but maybe. So yeah, I don't think he would want to leave, nor do Philly want him to leave either, in my mind. I think it would be a priority for them to want to keep.
He was like the best player in the playoffs for them ever since Joel Embiid caught that illness. He got.
Look, Simmons don't have a jump shot, so he's averaging 6 or 10 points, and Tobias Harris, he doesn't have the mid-range game that Jimmy Butler has. He does other good things, but Butler is a much better player in the playoffs certainly than Harris. So I think he was the Philadelphia's best player against Toronto. The last game. The last series they were in, So yeah, well, I think Embiid is still the best, but you're right. Embiid had a couple of off games. He was sick a couple of games too. I think so. Yeah, you're right. Butler probably was the most valuable player.
Yeah, so I think he's important for them. So
very important in my mind.
I think he'll stay. I don't think he's going to drop money to leave the Lakers when he can, get paid well and be in, I think, a strong contending team in the form of the 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have the Lakers necessarily above Philadelphia in any case. And even if I do, it wouldn't be by much. Like, Philadelphia is absolutely a contender next year.
Yeah.
Especially if Kawhi goes to the Clippers. So, but even if they stay, like they will say, hey, listen, we got to Game 7 right
and
now.
A very tough shot, a very tough, maybe some would argue lucky, right? Lucky shot.
Well, there's always a bit of luck here or there, but you're right. Like, it was took 4 bounces, but now people think that if they didn't make it, they would have lost. No, still would have gone to overtime, but still Philly would say we could have gone to overtime in Game 7. We were 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 bounces away from doing that, right? So any of the 4 bounces away from doing that. So there's no reason why Butler would want to leave. And I think Philly and him are a good match in my mind. So yeah, I think he'll stay. You think he'll stay too, right?
I think he'll stay. I don't think that's a mover there for me. But you know what?
Okay.
Things might change. The draft is going to happen tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we don't have to. Oh, yeah, actually, I didn't even know that. I don't think that's that interesting, right? Like, but I do want to, like, I don't know if you have any other topics. I do want to finalize asking you where the main players are going to go, like Kyrie, for example, and give us a percentage.
No, I think Kyrie's going to go to the Nets. I think despite that report that the Nets are not going to get him, I think he's definitely leaving the Celtics. You don't even need to read the reports. You can tell the way that they went out of the. They went out. No, even from the second half of the season onwards, when you're hearing tension and you're hearing all these slight outrage spilling out into the public with Kyrie, coming out saying, "Oh, these players aren't, playing their roles," and so on, and all these other players making murmurs that "Oh, this team is too talented. We have to, figure out a way to work together." You knew that there wasn't good cohesion between the team in terms of team morale. It was poor, and now that they were knocked out of the finals, and you see Kyrie walking out early and so on. Yeah, I think it's pretty I think it's pretty settled that he's going to leave.
They were really booing him, really. Every time he missed it. Now, if the shots went in, they would cheer, but they were booing because he was bricking them so much.
I think for the Celtics, right? If they lose Kyrie, this is PR wise, right? They'll look to it. You know what? We still have Jason Tatum, who's a Celtics, who are the Celtics favorite, right? The fan favorites.
Although I got the sense that Jaylen Brown actually was playing better, but you're right. Tatum has better potential. Has greater potential.
He's like the face of the franchise now. So I think Kyrie is leaving to the Nets.
Well, we think he is, but again, towards the end of the season, and that's key because look, I know Kyrie is a difficult guy to play with, and he might have. I think I read somewhere where Kyrie treated Tatum the way that LeBron treated Kyrie, which is not surprising to me. And I would say, get over it. Like, be a big boy, and see. So I'm not necessarily convinced that Jaylen Brown, like, as I said, Tatum has greater potential because of his height, but I'm not sure that he might actually turn out to be necessarily better than Jaylen Brown because Brown played better down the stretch and in the playoffs than Tatum. I'll still pick Tatum because I think it's off year. So do you think Kyrie's leaving or not? I think let's just go through that. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I was just going to get a quick percentage from you. What's your percentage to Brooklyn? Is it it can't be 100, like maybe 95 or?
I think it's going to be 70%.
70. That's it.
70% to the Nets, 30% to the Knicks, but it's going to be somewhere down New York.
Oh, okay. I see. I forgot about that.
I don't think no way he's going to go to the Lakers because I don't think they can pay him well enough to be the third guy. I don't think I mean, obviously he minds being the third guy, but I don't think he minds as much as him being paid so little, for services. And I think, I think the next one you're going to talk about is probably Durant, right? Durant.
Well, yeah, okay. So I'll just give you quickly. I forgot about the Knicks.
Let's just go quick.
I guess there's a percentage: 20% Knicks and 80% Nets. So I'll go even higher than you. So okay, all right, Durant. What do you think? Well, give me your percentage.
I think he's 80% going to stay, 20% to the
Knicks.
Shit. No, actually, 60% stay, 20%, 30% Knicks, 10% Nets.
Oh, so you still think? I suppose I think I'm roughly around you, but I will say this. Let me ask you: out of the 60%, what do you think let's just say I agree with it because I agree with you with the Knicks. I'll say Knicks are probably 30%. The Nets are maybe 5%. The rest are the Warriors, 65%. Maybe I'll go 70%, and do whatever. What I'm interested in is, do you think, because you're saying he's going to opt in, and
yes.
I think that's a very high chance too. But I will say this: I think the Warriors are feeling somewhat guilty. It's a PR move too, and I don't know if it's possible. The Warriors are just say, listen, whatever contract you want, if you want 5 years, 4 years, if you want 5 years with opt out in each. I don't know if it's even possible. I did hear or read somewhere, I forget who wrote it, the Warriors might be willing to just give you a contract, 5-year contract with an opt out in each year. I don't know if it's actually possible, first of all. But if that's the case,
I don't think
maybe
so.
he'll take it. Maybe he'll take it.
I think as a GM, that wouldn't. I mean, you could say it's wise because he's a once in a generation player. Who knows? He might come from his Achilles really well, just like apparently like Rudy Gay or something. Because apparently there were reports that Rudy Gay went to talk to Kevin Durant straight away after they found out it was his Achilles, and apparently Rudy Gay came back from his Achilles really well. So for me, like, I think a lot of people are still forgetting the narrative that maybe, who knows, what don't you think Durant want to go out and control his legacy by maybe bringing a team solo with, like, not solo, but like starting a new team where it's undoubtedly there's no question marks, no doubt, no opposing views that it's his team. He came into this place and he brought them the chip. Just like Kawhi, right? The narrative is that Kawhi came to Toronto, no one expected it, and he brought back a chip for them. That kind of thing.
I suppose, although I think we're getting a little bit, I would say a little bit carried away with Kawhi being the only one. He had a lot of help, right? Like, obviously he didn't have like a second all-star like Anthony Davis or even Klay, but he had a lot of help, like Gasol and Ibaka, and they played big. And he didn't really play big down the stretch either. So I know he deserves the MVP, but he wasn't like a one-man band.
I know you're right. Okay, we can go about this all day, but like the narrative, the general narrative is, Kawhi came and won the chip for them, right? That's the narrative right now. No one's out there saying, "Oh, what a team effort it is," even though it is. I don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I'm not trying to. But
I got the sense that people were coming around to Durant being the best player, and he's certainly on his way to top 10, the best 10 of all time, even being within the Warriors. Like, people are coming around to see that he truly is on that stack team, the best player, not just.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, yeah. That's why my percentage.
So I don't think in the history, like, people's gonna necessarily hold it against him anymore. Like, that sort of ship has sort of sailed.
No. Yeah, but.
Yeah. I think you're saying he wants to do it himself, right?
Just finish up it like real succinctly. So you think, okay, like we already gave our numbers for what he was going to do this year. So let's go about. So do you think he's going to? Let's go pose the question in a sense. Do you think he's going to stay in the Warriors past this year?
Yeah, before the injury, I certainly think he wanted sort of greener pastures, right? Maybe not greener pastures. That's the wrong phrase. He wanted sort of seek higher ambition.
Yeah.
Now, I think he wants familiarity because he's going through an uncertain phase, even though the money's going to be there for him. But I think he likes the place he is. He likes the teammates, and he'll have Klay there as some sort of injury buddy, rehab buddy in a sense. That it doesn't hurt. And I think the Warriors will certainly offer him whatever contract he wants, whether it's 5 or 4 or 3 or 2. I'm not sure what he wants to do. Maybe he takes a 2-year deal with another one of this 1 year. But I would not be surprised now, because now he can say, like if he stays with the Warriors for a 5-year contract, people will say, "Oh, now you've chickened out because you're injured." That is probably true, but he can use this. Hey, we have unfinished business. We came so close. I love the Warriors. Yeah. He can sort of like so the chances of him being the Warriors sort of shoots up, and I would not be surprised if he takes a long, a 5-year deal.
Yeah, no. I understand. I think, I see where you're coming from. I think I disagree with you that the Warriors are going to offer him a contract of that type of,
Oh, absolutely, they will.
Okay, we'll
if
see.
He wants it. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll get you back for the NBA, the NBA 2020 preview, and then we'll see what happens then. Then you can tell me whether you're right or whether I'm right.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go. And then finally, what do you think for Kawhi?
This one's hard. I'll just go simple. He's taking meetings with the Lakers, Clippers, Knicks, Nets, and Toronto. But I think it's just between two teams, and it is the Clippers or Toronto, and I think it's 50-50. You
think it's 50? I'm pretty much similar, but you got to choose one. You can't. That's
okay.
Don't sit on the fence.
Gun to my head, I'll go for that's hard, man. Clippers 60-40 Clippers.
Or 51-59 or 49, right?
Okay, 51. Just to make it a bit more like straight up.
Look, I wouldn't blame you because it is tough for me too. I think, gun to my head, I think you've heard how his contract possibilities are, where because he's an 8-year player, he could get his max 35% of the salary cap when he's a 10-year player. So he could sign a short-term deal at Toronto. That's what's in vogue right now. So I'm with you 50-50, but if I had to push one way, I think I'll lean towards Toronto, and he takes a short-term deal, whether it's a 1+1 or a 2+1, and then he goes from there. So I think we differ on that, but that's just a guess because, I wouldn't go either way. But I will say this, whichever team he signs, I think that team's the favorite for me. Whether it's the Clippers, and we agree, it's either the Clippers or the Toronto,
whether
right?
It's the Clippers or whether it's we agree.
Yeah, so you can.
Subject to now, it depends. Things could change if Lakers sign like a bomb ass player. Like who knows?
I still maybe. You're right. If things go right for them,
But a lot of people forget that, who knows? Maybe the Raptors could spring off some trades, or the Clippers could spring off some trades. Because the Clippers, they were actually after the midway point, they were trading their pieces away to gain some assets, like some picks. I remember they weren't planning to make the playoffs, but they had so much talent they I would say accidentally made it there.
Yeah, and they were really good. I mean, they were really probably better than, it turned out they were better than perhaps even Portland, right? Like,
I was about to say that. They were definitely better than Portland against
or some other teams. Right, or some other thing, like if it was OKC, for example, they just happened to meet the Warriors. So, when you add Kawhi, and maybe they can't sort of keep all their players, but if you keep the core guys, man, that would shoot into favoritism to me. So
no, I agree, and I think that's it.
Look, hey, listen, I don't want to do your job of editing, but you know how season began with your buddy giving that laugh at that media day or whatever, right? And you've made hay with it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
So maybe you might want to end the show.
Oh no, of course.
That same laugh.
No. I'm gonna say that. No, I'm definitely gonna put it. I'm gonna put the soundbite of him at the parade doing like that last laugh kind of thing.
Oh, did he say? Yeah. So it's symbolic to say, he's got the last laugh, right? So to shut you up for good. No, I'm only kidding. So that's just a thought that popped into my head.
Don't you think that was an amazing moment? How it came out as a joke and he got the last laugh.
Well, yeah, it is.
It's poetic. It's almost so poetic.
It is.
I'm in love with this Kawhi guy. I'm gonna get his jersey.
Okay. Hold on. So tell me now. You you don't know. It's not that you don't know, but it's sort of come this past season, that you're on. You've jumped on the bandwagon.
Like Kawhi.
Tell me why. Tell me. I don't fully understand. Like, I've always liked him because I think he's a great player, but
I never knew much about him being an Iceman. I just knew that a lot of people used to call, because I recently got into the NBA, so a lot of the general fans or the general consensus on Kawhi is just very ice cold, boring guy, right? Boring guy. That's what a lot of people say. So when he came over, I had nothing. I had no negative view of him. I always knew he was a good player. I always knew he was great. And then the point where I started liking him was when, the Spurs were taking the Warriors for a ride for game 1 until he got injured by Zaza.
So that was 2 seasons ago, right? That was 2 playoffs ago, excuse me.
Man, I was like, this guy's a beast. This guy was giving the Warriors a lot of trouble. And then he got injured. And then that whole season you didn't see him, right? And then there was all these news coming out. Oh, Kawhi may be behind this. Like, this quiet guy is like, this quiet guy character is just like a shitty guy. Doesn't want to play for the organization. Just cares about himself. So at that point, I was like, oh, what's going on here? I didn't know much, right? But then when he started joining the Raptors, it was just it's like a fresh slate for me. For me, it's like, I don't know whether it's that. Then he started balling out. And then throughout the season, no real take. But then when I started watching him in the playoffs, because that's when I really started watching, I was like, and I started watching his interview and stuff, like, this is a real likable guy. This guy just wants to play basketball, no nonsense. Doesn't care about the fame too much, I don't think. Like, come on, he wears New Balance shoes, right? Like, I think that says a lot about his character.
Well, I mean, he's being paid by New Balance, so, like, I mean, I don't know if he actually made the deal. His uncle might have. But, like, I agree with you that he's not, like, I think I might have said this, and he might.
No, you said, no. The way you sold him to me is, like, no nonsense, just, like, play basketball, very efficient player. He just worked hard. And then, I started seeing that. I was like, you know what? I like this guy. Instead, like, I actually, I prefer him over LeBron in terms of character. Because, I think me and you are both on the same boat. Sometimes, like, LeBron could, say things like he says real, like, dramatic things, and sometimes it comes off, but sometimes it just comes off as real.
Okay.
Annoying.
Yeah, it's similar. It's similar to a lot of the Man United players like Scholes and Giggs who just plays, right? And they're being real. Like, they're themselves. They don't try to be anyone different. And it seems to me that Kawhi is that, like, maybe he's not the most interesting person.
Form, like the best form.
Yeah, but you like that. I like that about him because that's his true self. That's him being real.
And he doesn't care what other people think as much. I think that's amazing. And I think players should strive to be more like him, or take some notes off Kawhi rather than all these flashy ass players. Which, like, I think it's like that's the thing that sometimes turns me off the NBA. Like, try and be flashy and, like, need all this attention, and, like, I like Kawhi. That's why, like, when the players came out winning the Eastern Conference Finals, they're really focused. Or when they won game 3, when they finished game 4 against the Warriors, being 3-1 up in the series, they all had that, like, they were real quiet. They're just focused. We had that real focus face. We still have a job to do kind of mentality. And a lot of people attribute that to because they see it in Kawhi being the guy who, even though they're on top or behind, always the same, just focus. Yeah, I'm just here to play basketball. There's still a game to be played. Even though a lot of people, like, a lot of the media would think, oh, there's no character in this guy. But I think that's a lot of character, right? To not show being touched by pressure. It's just not as marketable, but who cares? I mean, if you truly watch a lot of sports players perform at the highest levels, I think that's the highest level of certainty and calmness that you can achieve, right?
Yeah, look, I completely understand where you're coming from. I think I might have mentioned I like people who are real, who's not what I call myth makers, or who aren't necessarily crowd pleasers.
Persona.
Yeah, who are themselves, and they're not trying to be anyone who's different, even if they might not be for everyone. That's why I like Kevin Durant. That's why I like Kawhi Leonard. I'm not, Draymond, and I'm not against LeBron. I think he can be a bit passive aggressive, but that's not the worst sin in the world. He's done enough responsibility. He's still much more a net positive. There are people who are, to me, myth makers like Kobe Bryant, Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade's a little bit that who really ticks me off. But okay, regardless of that, or despite that,
Carmelo?
I don't think it's a myth maker. I just don't. I think just he's an overrated player.
He's just annoying.
I have nothing against.
Annoying.
I wouldn't even say he's annoying. I have nothing against it. I actually like him as a person. Just think he's an overrated player. People overrate his offensive sort of skills, and it's just isn't inefficient in this day and age, or in any day and age, really. But I want to ask you this because
that was a sucker punch.
No, it's not. Hey, listen.
In any time of day, like, so that means he was never a great player at all.
I don't think he was ever. I think he was a good or very good offensive player. Not even offensive, a very good sort of one-on-one scorer. But that's only one component of offense, and offense is only half or one of two components of entire basketball. So he got cut. So you can sort of have him for a sandwich for nothing. Did he get picked up at any team? No, he didn't get cut. He got traded to Chicago, right? So any playoff team who might have a roster spot, who might need some offense, do you get picked up? No. So that's all you need to know. Huh? Sorry?
The Lakers?
No. Well, you never know because LeBron, like they could always sort of take a flyer on him, but I don't think so because it's not going to end well, and that's not going to be good. Like look at the Lakers. They were making a run this season. LeBron certainly, if he wanted to, he could have got him, right? He could have went to the GM and say have him just for a short-term contract. Didn't. So yeah, I think his career is done in my mind. But so I want to end up with, because you like these players and you like your Scholes and Rooney's, who's your favorite player. Why do you like, or maybe it's just an act, but why do you like someone like a Pogba or a Ronaldo or?
No, I don't like Pogba. I don't like Ronaldo.
Oh, you seem to always somehow, like maybe it's just against me or something because I don't like them, but you seem to somehow always trying to defend them. And these are the type of players that you don't like.
I defend their quality. It doesn't mean I like their character. Like I can tell you like players or character I like, but there's players you don't like, but they're good. That's it. It's not
okay. We can disagree on that, but I always got the sense that you defend them because you like their character.
No. I can give you the list of my favorite players, and they're not even close. None of them are in the list of players that I like.
Okay, now that I know, and we can certainly disagree on their effectiveness, which we won't get into. But I always got the impression that you sort of liked them, which is why you sort of defend them.
Okay, it's easier if I give you. Okay, I'll give you like 5 basketball players I like and 5 football players I like.
Sure, go ahead.
I really like.
Are you talking about personality or are you talking about playing
personality? More personality. I like Kawhi.
Okay. That's one.
I like Kyle Lowry.
Okay, he's likable. I agree with you there. I didn't like his game, but he's certainly an admirable guy for me. And he's certainly a pretty good team guy by all accounts as well, like a glue guy. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
I like Steph Curry.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's really underappreciated as a sort of a team. Like it was almost like the Tim Duncan as well. No nonsense, and he's the franchise. So yeah, I agree with you. So not just his playing ability, but his off the court, he makes the franchise tick. He's the most important guy in my mind. So yeah, I'm with you there.
I like LeBron James.
Even with the passive aggressiveness.
I mean, like I like to think that he's past it, but he's still shown signs of I would like to think good leadership. That's why I put him lower down the list. I don't think character-wise he's the best, but he has he's some
some, but I think it's far more positive than negative in my mind. So I'll with you. I don't know if he makes the top 5, but I see where you're going.
Yeah, last one's a curveball. I like Steven Adams.
Yeah, I don't see, there's nothing not to like. I mean, maybe he's not for everyone because it's got a bit of a accent, even though it shouldn't be weird or it just is where he's from, and maybe he's a bit of a sphinx here or there. But I can see that. I don't necessarily like him, but I don't dislike him. So
Can I put like an equal spot? I also like Kevin Love. So Kevin Love / Steven Adams for fifth spot. But okay. Football players. Okay. I'll just go football players. I like. Oh, this one's a bit tougher because there's so many. I like Gary Neville.
Well, are you talking about just still playing or not? Okay, fine. Let's go with that. Gary Neville. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You want me to go still playing?
But I thought you like Rooney. Don't you like Rooney? If you're talking about expert,
I like Wayne Rooney. I like Ander Herrera. I like Leo Messi.
Herrera. What?
Yeah, I like Ander Herrera.
Where did he come from? What?
I've
never heard him talk. Huh?
No. I like Juan Mata.
Okay, that's a non-Manchester, because we all know, like, they're all like, so Messi. You seem to like, but you always sort of, not only do you, like, you don't sort of bag Messi, but you seem to always raise Ronaldo vis-a-vis Messi. And one, I disagree, and two, I get the sense that you kind of like him as a personality too, which maybe I got the wrong sort of idea.
It's just that I know he's good because I've seen him since the start of him taking over. So
okay, no one said that he wasn't good, but if you're going to argue, if you're going to compare, obviously, the Messi versus Ronaldo, I don't think it's a contest. But do you still think, or do you think?
Oh my God, no, we're not getting into this. All right, let me name my fifth player.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like I
like David De Gea.
Yeah.
These are like the players I like. Obviously, I can go off and name some more, but like these are you can get a rough idea. I just like players who just focus more on the game. I didn't put any Jesse Lingard in there. I didn't put any of these new young millennials. I like these players who are just more quiet. Just they just speak in the conference, and when they speak conference, they're always more professional, but they add a bit of positive character, and that's Juan Mata and Ander Herrera. Always like big fan favorites. I like Wayne Rooney because he's my favorite player ever, and I think he conducts himself.
I would say Scholes and Giggs would be up there too. No.
Oh no, Scholes and Giggs are up there, but like the thing, I didn't put them because you said currently playing, right? That's why.
Sorry, okay, sorry. I thought you had Rooney and Neville. And
there's the Giggs scandal, which really sometimes raise questions. His brothers.
Adultery. Is it adultery? Is that what you're talking about? Is that the one?
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
That's a bit off for me. And then
I suppose. I suppose.
Is a bit like I think he has that like Roy Keane viciousness in. When it comes to punditry, maybe not as vicious. Maybe vicious not the word, but very blunt. When it comes to
I would say necessary, but that's my opinion. I think
necessary, yeah.
Too often, I think Roy Keane is even better than Scholes. I think he presents even better. Yeah. I got to say, I love Neville as a commentator. I'm not sure if I necessarily like him anymore as a pundit. He's too close to United. He's not. He's afraid to. He's pulling his punches in my mind. I would much prefer to hear Roy Keane, for example, to pundit, to give their punditry rather than commentating. Neville is still.
I think the United players, when they keep getting United players to talk about United, I think it's very dated. It's been worn out. That idea or that pitch or that view, it's been worn out. But anyways, this got to be the end, man. Like
all right.
2 hours. I'd like to thank you a lot for coming on. I thought this was a very good episode.
It was my pleasure.
And I mean, well, let's do one soon. Let's do one for the NBA preview. Let's take this off season. Maybe I'll get you on for football when you're free. But anyways,
thank you. And like they said, enjoy this moment, and have fun with it. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks, Harry.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.